Everyone in the palace knew that with a little bit of food, they could make this foolish princess do anything. The Honorable Grand Tutor Zhou casually gave me a piece of cake, and I pestered him for many years. Although he never showed it openly, he was very disgusted with me behind my back, bluntly saying that I was shameless and eager to offer myself to him. I didn't know what shameless and eager to offer myself meant. I only knew that Tutor Zhou gave me delicious food. He was a good person. I liked him, and I wanted to repay his kindness. Until the news of a military defeat came from the frontier, and my father's most beloved third daughter was about to marry far away for an alliance. My third sister's mother, the Imperial Noble Consort, personally came to find me, even giving me a box of pastries, begging me to marry on behalf of the third sister. I wiped the pastry crumbs from my mouth, waved my hand casually. "Don't worry, it's just marrying someone. If the third sister doesn't want to, I'll do it for her." Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. It wasn't until I was stopped in front of the Imperial study that I realized I had agreed too easily. My emperor father seemed to have forgotten that he had a daughter like me. And naturally, the guards of the Imperial study were unwilling to report my presence. But the Imperial Noble Consort gave me a whole box of pastries. If I couldn't accomplish this task, wouldn't I have eaten her food for nothing? I scratched my head, had a sudden idea, turned around, and shouted towards the Imperial study. "Father! Father! It's 16! Please open the door!" The guards shouted angrily, "How dare you? The Imperial study is a restricted area. How can a little girl like you be so presumptuous?" They were about to come at me with spears. I quickly ran away, circling around the Imperial study, shouting as I ran. "Father! Father! It's 16! 16 has something to discuss with you. Who is making such a racket here?" Suddenly, the door of the Imperial study was opened, and a group of people came out. The Imperial Noble Consort had already told me that father wore yellow clothes embroidered with a 5-clawed dragon. I immediately spotted father, waved at him while panting heavily. "Father, please tell them to stop chasing me. 16 is exhausted." Father waved his hand, signaling the guards to retreat, and frowned at me. "Are you 16? Which 16? I knelt down with a thud, knocked my head twice, and answered crisply. 16 lives in the East Hall of the Palace of Longevity. My mother is Lady Lin." "Which Lady Lin?" The old eunuch beside him quickly whispered. "She was a palace maid who served the Empress in the past. Displeased your Majesty on the first night of service, and was never summoned again. Later, she gave birth to Princess 16, whom your Majesty forgot to name. A maid from the Western Hall of the Palace of Longevity once told me that my mother was the lamplighting maid in the Palace of Phoenix. The Empress was unwell, so my father casually picked a maid from the Palace of Phoenix to spend the night with him. My mother, who was chosen, felt hopeless. She was just a year away from leaving the palace, and her fiancé was working as a guard within the palace. They were deeply in love and trusted each other, planning to marry once they left the palace. She begged my emperor father to spare her, but he became even more enraged and forced himself upon her. Afterwards, he casually bestowed her with the title of lady and sent her to the cold palace of longevity. Even when my mother carried me for 10 months and gave birth to me, he never visited once. He didn't even give me a name. It seemed my father still couldn't remember who Lady Lin was or who the 16th princess was. He smiled and asked me, "Little 16, what brings you to see me?" "I want to get married." I looked up at him and smiled. 16 is grown up now. "It's time to get married." The originally somber Imperial study burst into laughter, and my father helped me up, ruffling my hair as if I were his most cherished daughter. "Who does 16 want to marry? How about I bestow a marriage for you?" The old eunuch chimed in to add humor. "I heard the 16th princess is quite close to Tutor Zhou." Father raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Does little 16 like Tutor Zhou?" Among the crowd, Zhou Chumu's face changed, his lips pressed tightly together, and his intense gaze fell on me, seemingly very nervous. Perhaps he was very afraid I would say I wanted to marry him. I have always known that Zhou Chumu doesn't like me. He is a good person, and we met because he helped me. One winter, he happened to see me being forced by little eunuchs to crawl like a dog in exchange for some charcoal. He fiercely dealt with those eunuchs and left all the silver money he had with me. Actually, I knew him. He was the teacher of the crown prince, and often came to the palace to teach the crown prince and the third princess. Because the palace people called me Silly 16, I was not convinced and wanted to become smarter. The blind old maid who did the laundry said study could make one smart. So I often sneaked through a dog hole to listen to Zhou Chumu give lessons to the crown prince and the third princess from the corner of the study room. He taught so well, but I was too stupid. After listening to so many lessons, I only remembered one sentence. Human affairs are dreams. Mortal life endures but a few autumns. Afraid of forgetting this poem, I wrote it inside the warmest piece of clothing and often turned it over to look at it, hoping to find a chance to ask Zhou Chumu what this poem meant. But not long after, Zhou Chumu, who used to bring me things when he came to the palace, suddenly became very disgusted with me. It was during a palace banquet when a few playboys encountered me in the imperial garden, probably thinking I was an ignorant little maid. They handed me a plate of pastries and asked me to recite some indecent poems. And one of them even asked if I wanted to be his house courtesan, saying that following him would ensure I had enough to eat and wear. I didn't know what a house courtesan was, but having enough to eat and wear was my biggest dream for over a decade. So I looked at him brightly and asked when he would take me away. This scene was probably seen by Zhou Chumu. He dragged me away, his grip so strong it seemed he would crush my bones. I struggled hard, and he let go of me, angrily scolding, "You are a princess of country Li, how can you degrade yourself like this? Eager to attach yourself to any man you see, wishing to offer yourself as a concubine. A princess of country Li should take the third princess as a model, with unyielding pride, not inferior to men." I was stunned by the reprimand, my face full of tears, helpless and not daring to move. I didn't understand why Zhou Chumu was angry. My mother raised me this way, and after she died, I continued to live this way. To me, there was nothing wrong with it. Especially after the war started, our situation became worse, and we did more disgraceful things. The empress ordered the palace to be frugal, but it was the neglected palace concubines' food that was saved. The monthly rations were deducted layer by layer, leaving little for us. If any favored concubine ran out of charcoal or something else, it was us who suffered. Not to mention reciting a few indecent poems, if it could exchange for some soup or charcoal. I would recite them 1,000 times a day, 10,000 times. But Zhou Chumu's reaction today told me this seemed wrong. I didn't know what to say, just kept wiping my tears. Seeing me silent, he left disappointed, never bringing me anything again. I continued to live cautiously in the cold palace of longevity in the same way as before, usually mocked and played with by little eunuchs and maids. Even finding a piece of meat pie in the dog food bowl could make me incredibly happy. Until one time, when I was caught eavesdropping on Zhou Chumu's lecture, and was beaten nearly to death by the guards. It was still the third princess who saved me and gave me medicine to heal my wounds. The grace of saving a life is as great as the heavens, and I must repay it. At present, the army outside the borders has been defeated, and the leader from the northwest had a miserable time when he was a hostage in country Li. He is fierce and bloodthirsty, and managed to escape back to the northwest with half a breath left, where he killed his own father and then led troops straight to the border to attack country Li. He captured 58 cities outside the border, pointing his sword at the capital, and declared that he did not want the throne, only the princess of country Li. Almost everyone agreed that the most dazzling third princess, Li Suman, should be married off. The Imperial Noble Consort said that the third princess was so troubled by this matter that she couldn't eat or sleep and even fell seriously ill. My emperor father convened the ministers to discuss for 3 days and nights. But the generals who could fight were either injured or dead, and no one in the court dared to fight back. So there was no choice but to marry off the third princess. The Imperial Noble Consort, having no other option, brought a whole box of pastries to find me, begging me to marry on behalf of the third princess. I asked her if there was good food in marriage. The Imperial Noble Consort was silent for a moment, then said there was not only good food but also beautiful clothes and jewelry. That's too valuable. I became happy, wiped the pastry crumbs from my mouth, patted my chest, and said heroically, "Don't worry, It's just marrying someone. If the third princess doesn't want to, I'll do it for her. But if father wants me to marry Zhou Chumu, then I would be breaking my promise. I quickly waved my hand. No, no, I don't want to marry Tutor Zhou. I want to marry the Northwest leader Gu. Oh dear, what did the Imperial Noble Consort say the Northwest leader's name was? The old eunuch quietly reminded me, Guze. I gratefully looked at him and said loudly, I want to marry Guze. Perhaps my voice was too loud, it shocked everyone in the hall, and they all looked at me in amazement. No way. Zhou Chumu suddenly spoke, lifted his robe, knelt on the ground, performed a great salute. And when he raised his head, his face was as pale as paper. The princess is young and ignorant, not yet understanding what marriage is. Your Majesty, please reconsider. My father emperor turned the jade ring in his hand, stared at him, and smiled. Tutor Zhou, my little 16 is indeed a child, but she is very clever. I like this child, so naturally I will fulfill her wish. With a wave of his hand, he issued a decree. Announce the decree, the 16th princess is virtuous and noble. As the envoy from Northwest Country Gu comes to seek marriage on behalf of the King of Gu, she is granted the title Princess Lucky, enjoys the ceremony of a prince, and marries into Country Gu to foster good relations between the two countries. Not only that, Father Emperor also appointed Zhou Chumu as the imperial son-in-law. And next month the third princess will marry him. Zhou Chumu's face was pale, and in front of everyone, he could only thank and accept the decree. I was only thinking about my newly acquired palace and wanted to go see it quickly. Marrying for alliance is really great. After leaving the imperial study, I held the decree, walking and laughing foolishly. As I walked, I saw Zhou Chumu standing not far away, his face stern, his eyes dark. I was a bit scared, so I started to run, but Zhou Chumu quickly caught me. Do you know what marrying for alliance represents? Clearly no one thought of you. Why did you jump out to act strong? Do you think this is child's play? He grabbed my wrist and dragged me toward the imperial study, like a child throwing a tantrum. Come with me to see His Majesty, say you don't want to marry for alliance. No. I shook off his hand. I want to marry for alliance. I don't want to stay here. I hate you. I hate this place. You are going to marry the third princess. Why are you coming to find me? Tears fell down, I choked and said. No one here cares about me. I want to leave far away, and never come back. Zhou Chumu was stunned, opened his mouth, but said nothing. Taking advantage of his daze, I quickly shook off his hand and ran back. As soon as I saw the new palace, I put everything behind me. The palace doesn't leak wind, there are no rats or snakes inside. And there's even a plate of peach blossom pastry on the table. Lying on the soft couch, I once again sighed. Marrying for alliance is really good. The day of my marriage alliance was set a little earlier than my third sister's wedding. But the preparations were done together. I heard that my third sister caused quite a stir, and father confined her to her quarters, only allowing her out on the wedding day. Zhou Chumu hadn't entered the palace again, not even for the morning court sessions. I shut myself off from the outside world, lying in the new palace all day, indulging in various delicacies, and ended up gaining some weight. On the day of the marriage alliance, I was woken up early to get dressed and groomed. Once the wedding attire was on and the veil covered my face, I was pushed onto a carriage adorned with red silk. Aren't Father Emperor and Mother Empress coming? Isn't it customary to bid farewell to one's parents at a wedding? Could it be that Father Emperor and Mother Empress are still asleep? I lifted the curtain to look around. The morning mist was rising, and a light rain was falling. But the surroundings were empty, with not a single person in sight. Didn't the Imperial Noble Consort say she would come to see me off? Why isn't she here either? The nanny escorting me pulled down the curtain and laughed. Time is tight, we couldn't wait. His Majesty is busy with affairs, so we were instructed to set off first. Yes, weddings must adhere to auspicious timings and cannot be delayed. Father is busy, Mother Empress and the Imperial Noble Consort are busy too, I understand. I sat properly, lowered the red veil, and spoke with a hint of nasal tone. It's okay, 16 is obedient, Nanny, let's go. I originally wanted to ask Father if he could give me a name or something. as being called 16 all the time isn't ideal. Hiding under the red veil, my cheeks flushed, and my eyes turned red. 16 is obedient, 16 doesn't miss home, nor mum. I wiped my tears with the veil and forced a smile. Mum, 16 is getting married, and it's to the mighty king of Country Goo. They say he's very wealthy, and once 16 becomes queen, I'll send you offerings every day, so you can enjoy delicacies in the afterlife. And even the king of hell will have to massage your back and legs. Spring rain like silk spread a glaring curtain of blood on the green stone ground in front of the Zhou family ancestral hall. Zhou Chumu knelt with his head lowered, his inner garments soaked with blood, and a drop of crimson rain hung on his raven-black eyelashes. It was like tears of blood. The barbed whip danced in the air, slicing through the rain curtain with a whoosh, and lashed fiercely on Zhou Chumu's slightly thin back. His face was pale, yet he remained upright like a pine tree, kneeling indifferently. The youngest sister, the last in the family hierarchy, couldn't bear it any longer and rushed to their father's side, pleading tearfully. "Father! Please stop! Brother knows he's wrong." Their father gripped the whip, veins bulging on his arm, and looked at his most outstanding son, questioning harshly. "Even now, you still want to refuse to marry the third princess and go far away to join the army?" Zhou Chumu slowly raised his head. Despite being weak, his voice remained steady and strong. "Yes, I want to join the army. I want to go to the frontier, to see how the once subjugated Country Goo under Country Li's feet has become so fierce. Leaving the entire court helpless, having to use an innocent weak girl to exchange for a ridiculous peace. You ungrateful child, shut up." His father, furious, kicked Zhou Chumu in the chest. He fell back heavily, crashing to the ground. Everything before his eyes began to blur, and he seemed to see the young girl smiling at him again, holding a pastry like a treasure and saying thank you. She understood nothing, easily deceived by a piece of pastry. Such a pure and innocent young girl never enjoyed the title of princess. Not even a name, yet at the final moment, why should she, who tried so hard to live, be sent to die? In the pouring rain, Zhou Chumu closed his eyes, tears almost falling. The carriage swayed and shook for 16 days, and during these 16 days, I pondered deeply, trying to come up with a proper name for myself. But being illiterate, I hadn't thought of one even by the time we reached Country Goo. As dusk fell, through the curtain, I saw a tall and burly man welcoming us at the city gates. He rode a warhorse, kicking up a cloud of dust, and without a word, lifted the curtain and drew his sword to lift my veil. Could this be the king of Country Goo? His hair was so unruly, and he had a beard, like a lion dog. I thought miserably, marriage alliances are no good. The guards and palace maids from Country Li were restrained, and didn't dare to breathe loudly upon entering the capital of the Country Goo. And I was scared pale. "What's your name?" The burly man scrutinized me. I trembled and replied, I don't have a name." "No name?" He frowned, eyes widening, and cursed at the people behind him. "My king! The Emperor of Country Li is messing with us. Sending over a nameless little girl." He dragged me off the carriage and pulled me towards the palace. I was so frightened I forgot to cry, only trembling incessantly. The burly man threw me to the ground and said to the man sitting on the throne, "My king, this little girl is not a princess from Country Li." Before I could react, the man sitting there already grasped my neck. "If it's not her, then kill her and have them send another one over." His voice was deep and hoarse, like a vengeful ghost. I was so scared I hiccuped and raised my face to shout. "I am a princess. I just don't have a name." Seeing the man's face clearly, I was stunned, blurting out a name I had almost forgotten. "Lang." The man's eyes were long and deep, his hair slightly curly, his face handsome, and his skin dark. Yet it couldn't hide his cold and stern features. His light blue pupils showed violence and impatience as he tightened his grip on my neck suddenly. Pretending to be her, even more unforgivable. He lifted me into the air, my legs flailing, almost rolling my eyes back. "Lang. I am Ting, I even stole meat bones for you to eat." Guze suddenly released his hand, scrutinizing me closely, a faint confusion appearing between his brows. "Ting wasn't this chubby. I just ate a bit too much recently." I felt a bit wronged. Has Lang already forgotten Ting? No, It's my fault. Lang didn't recognize Ting. Lang was wrong. Guzay knelt down, hugging me tightly, his cheek pressed against my neck. The fluffy fur collar of his clothes brushed against my chin, warm like a big dog. And his voice even sounded like a little beast's whimper. And I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye back then. I buried myself into his fur collar, comfortably squinting my eyes, my voice turning soft. It's okay, how could I blame Lang? We are the best of friends. Guzay gently rubbed his forehead against my nose like before, his blue eyes moist. Ting is really good, the best little girl in the world. Lang and I met in the deep palace of Country Li. The first time we met, I was being chased by the hunting dogs of my second sister, running like a rat. I didn't know where I had escaped to when I encountered a boy who looked like a beggar. The boy had a thick iron chain around his neck, his skin worn to sores. His eyes were hidden under long, curly hair, staring at me ominously. As I got closer, he bared his teeth and growled at me, a sound like a wolf's howl from the beast park. I didn't dare get closer, cautiously asking, "Are you human?" Of course, he didn't respond, just stared at me fiercely. I had already shaken off the hunting dogs and didn't need to stay longer. But seeing the sores on his neck, I couldn't bring myself to leave. I looked at the meat bone I had managed to snatch and hesitated for a moment, but still threw it to him. The boy circled the bone twice in confusion, sniffed it lightly with his nose, and then devoured it. You eat so fast. I swallowed my saliva, comforting my growling stomach. It's okay, the hunting dogs of my second sister eat every day, I can just steal more. But later, I never got to eat the meat bone. I always worried about this boy who was chained. He, like me, had no mother, no name, living like a mouse in the cold palace. So I visited him every day, bringing him food, and gave him a name, Lang. Lang became more and more enthusiastic towards me, like a big dog, always loving to pounce on me and sniff around me with his nose. When I was unhappy, he would press his forehead against my nose, whimpering in his throat, looking more miserable than I was. As the seasons passed, I taught Lang to speak, and he became more like a person. But he was clumsy, always mispronouncing 16 as Ting. Later, Lang disappeared from the palace for no reason, leaving only a rusty iron chain under the banyan tree where he was tied. I lived too hard, couldn't remember too many things, and soon forgot about the boy who was like a wolf. After all, in this palace, it's too common for a good person to suddenly die. 10. After a long separation, I clung to Guzay, chattering away, talking about the title my father bestowed upon me, my new palace, my third sister, Zhou Chumu, the little flower blooming under the banyan tree where we met. Guzay just looked at me gently, patiently listening to me talk, occasionally feeding me a bite of beef or goat milk. As night fell, the maids lit the lamps. The candlelight flickered, reflected in Guzay's lake-like blue-green eyes. I was mesmerized, dumbfoundedly saying, Lang, so beautiful. The man's cold brows and eyes were melted by the candlelight. He slightly curled his lips, rubbing my hair. Ting is also beautiful, the most beautiful girl. I pursed my lips and smiled shyly, showing him my red wedding dress and the dowry I brought. As he listened, he held my flailing feet, warming them. The man's body heat continuously transferred from my feet to my whole body, like a walking furnace. So comfortable. I sighed, snuggling into his arms, rubbing like a spoiled cat. He let me mess around, playing with my fingers, speaking softly. After I left, did Ting have a hard time in Country Li? Not hard at all. I smiled, eyes curved, eagerly telling Guzay about the good people I met. Tutor Zhou occasionally gives me food and clothes, and the blind old maid who washes clothes gives me boiled eggs. He didn't say anything, just pulled me into his arms, holding me very tightly. Lang, I'm not a child anymore, I can live very well on my own. I hugged him, imitating how my mother used to comfort me, gently patting his back. Lang must have had a hard time too, traveling from Country Li to Country Gu, it must be very far. Guzay buried his face in my neck, his voice hoarse. It's really far from Country Li to Country Gu. If it were closer, I could have brought you over sooner, and you wouldn't have to suffer so much. It's not suffering. I lifted my face, showing a bright smile. With Lang thinking of me, it's not suffering at all. He held me tighter, his voice like a sigh. No matter what happens in the future, I won't let Ting live like before again. Can we use gold chopsticks for meals? Yes. Can we eat meat bones dipped in sesame oil every meal? Yes. Can we use silk to wipe our butts? Yes. I widened my eyes. Marrying for alliance is great. Guzé gently placed the girl who was sound asleep in his arms onto his own bed, then stepped out of the room. The gentle smile on his face gradually faded, replaced by a cold and fierce expression in his eyes. Is there news from the spies? Please take a look, my king. Mo Bei knelt to the ground, respectfully presenting a thick book. As Guzé flipped through the records of the past, Mo Bei continued to report. My king, the envoy from Country Li said they stole the queen's dowry. But each person only took some silk cloth. They did not change the wedding dress, as the emperor approved it. In other words, the hypocritical emperor of Country Li only prepared a few pieces of shabby silk cloth as a dowry for his daughter, and the wedding dress was merely a plain red skirt. If it were due to war and an empty treasury, it would be understandable. However, the spies from Country Li reported that the emperor prepared 4,200 cards of dowry for his beloved third princess, and ordered a road of red silk worth 10,000 gold per piece to be laid for 3,000 miles on the wedding day. Guzé's eyes were filled with a bloodthirsty aura as he threw the book to the ground, unable to suppress the fierceness in his voice. Send this book to the emperor of Country Li and tell him to clean up the insubordinate people in his territory. And also, inform him that if he doesn't send everything the 16th princess deserves, I will personally take it. Yes. After Mo Bei closed the door, he realized he was drenched in cold sweat. This king, who grew up among wolves, still carried the blood and ferocity of a wolf. After Country Gu was defeated, he was sent by the former king to the Country Li for their amusement, tortured beyond recognition. He managed to escape back to Country Gu alone, killed his brother and father, and ascended to the throne. The scattered army of Country Gu became invincible under his reorganization, winning every battle. Surrounding nations trembled at the mention of his name, and even the wealthy and vast Country Li became his defeated foe. Everyone thought this true wolf king was like an animal, only knowing slaughter, devoid of humanity. Mo Bei also thought so. But after the princess from Country Li arrived, he changed his mind. Wolves are not cold-blooded, they simply recognize their master. The pure and gentle princess easily tamed him, making him willingly bow his head in submission. Lang indeed kept his word and sent me a large box of treasures within a few days. Is it all mine? He nodded with a smile. It's all for Ting. I pulled out a dress adorned with small pearls from the box, excitedly standing in front of the mirror to compare it to myself. My third sister has a dress like this and a pair of shoes adorned with large pearls. They are so beautiful. I wanted to find the shoes but discovered a letter inside. The words on the cover were easy to recognize, saying to the Queen of Country Gu. After reading the letter, Guzé's expression turned serious. I asked eagerly, "Is it a letter from father?" "What does he say?" "He says he wants to promote your birth mother Lady Lin. And for the relocation of the tomb, Ting needs to bow and pay respects. Also, for the third princess's wedding, he wants to invite you to attend." I became excited. I can go and bow to my birth mother too? I was too young when she passed away and couldn't see her off. Guzé's expression turned somber, as if he was contemplating something. Lang, what are you thinking? Seeing his furrowed brows, I felt uneasy. Guzé pinched my earlobe and finally smiled. Nothing, I'm just happy for Ting. I became excited again. Then I want to wear a new dress when I go back. All right, Ting can wear whatever she wants. The man's gaze remained gentle, but his eyes held a depth I couldn't comprehend. 5 days later, Guzé and I set off together for Country Li. With him by my side, the days seemed to fly by. What was supposed to be a journey of over 10 days felt like only 2 or 3. Guzé disliked crowded places, so my father wisely chose not to have anyone welcome us with fanfare. After we settled at the capital's inn, someone came to inform me that Tutor Zhou was seeking me for an important matter. I instinctively looked at Guzé, who was playing with a short blade, and he lifted his eyes slightly. Since it's an old acquaintance, go ahead. The maid helped me change my clothes and led me out. After walking less than half a mile, I felt a scorching gaze behind me. Turning around, I saw Guzay casually sitting on the windowsill, watching me with his head tilted. He looked like a wolf king surveying his territory. I felt completely at ease and waved to him joyfully before stepping into the tea house across the street. Inside the tea house sat a young man, emaciated and frail, his wide robe hanging loosely on his frame. I looked closely, almost unable to recognize him. Wanting to speak but remembering his once disdainful gaze towards me, hesitated, and closed my mouth. The tea on the table rippled with waves, and after a long time, he spoke, his voice hoarse. "How are you?" I tapped my nails softly and replied, "Lang treats me very well." Zhou Chumu's fingers turned white as he gripped the teacup upon hearing such an intimate address. He is an outsider and bears resentment towards Country Li. You are a princess of Country Li, do not become too enamored with him. His words were fierce and aggressive, and my tears threatened to spill over as I stood up to rush out. But he grabbed my wrist. I was too extreme. "You, don't be afraid." He lowered his eyes and said softly, "The current peace is merely an illusion, and you are the princess of Country Li. If war breaks out again, how will you manage in Country Gu? Compared to a foreign land, why not return, at least? I am here." I was stunned for a moment, not expecting him to say this. But it was truly too late. Moreover, he had nothing, just a civil official, unable to protect me. "Tutor Zhou, you are a good person, I respect you greatly." I said earnestly, "Thank you, for thinking of me. But I don't want to return, Country Gu is wonderful, and Lang is wonderful too." The tea house was warm and cozy, making one's head dizzy. Suddenly, I remembered the past. When Lang and I leaned against the banyan tree, leaves rustling and falling. We slept peacefully as if 100 years had passed. "This is ultimately your home." His eyes reddened, seemingly struggling to maintain his composure. I looked up at him, still innocent and naive. "What is home?" Zhou Chumu was stunned, and I said nothing more, taking a few pieces of pastry and returning. Before pushing open the door, I blinked my sore eyes. It was nearing dusk. Guzay sat under the candlelight, his deep features bathed in a layer of golden light. He lowered his eyes, seriously sewing something onto my shoes. The man who usually wielded a knife to kill now holding a needle and thread seemed perfectly natural. "What is Lang doing?" I ran over joyfully. Ting wanted shoes like the third princess. Guzay put down the needle and thread, lifted me onto his lap, his warm breath tingling as it sprayed on my ear. "I'm trying to sew it for Ting. Lang is so good." I hugged his neck and kissed his face, then began to ask for more. "Ting also wants a phoenix robe, the gold-threaded phoenix is beautiful." The man's dark skin blushed slightly, and as he lowered his eyes, his blue eyes shimmered like waves. "All right, Lang will embroider it for Ting." I shook my head and asked, "Lang, why do you give me everything I want?" Guzay chuckled softly, pressing his forehead against mine. The candlelight dancing in his eyes, bursting forth with a wolf-like glow. He said, "Wolves are born to give everything for their master." I leaned into his embrace and closed my eyes. Lang is not like a wolf, more like a big dog. I lowered my head, hiding my expression from anyone, but my voice remained pure and innocent. "Lang is Ting's dog, you belong to me alone." He nuzzled my cheek, truly like a loyal dog. "Yes, I belong to you alone, and you is solely mine." The next day, a banquet was set in the palace. It was my first time venturing beyond the Palace of Longevity. And I was naturally overwhelmed with anxiety, clinging to Guzay's sleeve. And even stumbled in the grand hall. Laughter echoed around, mocking my foolishness and lack of decorum. Seeing Guzay's face darken, father quickly reprimanded everyone into silence. The whispers in the hall gradually ceased, and I took my seat beside Guzay. As the aroma of wine wafted through the air, I looked around but did not see my third sister. So I asked, "Father, where is my third sister?" "Sumin is unwell today and is resting in the palace." Father then had someone lead me to visit her. Guzay urged me to return quickly, and I nodded, obedient as a child. Barely a few dozen steps from the hall, the sound of swords clashing erupted behind me. The palace maids were in a panic, but I continued walking with a smile. "Why have you stopped? Hurry and take me to see my third sister." In an instant, cries of battle filled the palace. I turned back, and the guards respectfully ushered me into a secret chamber. Inside, Guzay knelt on the ground, his hands and feet bound with iron chains. He looked at me, not with anger, but with sorrow. He said, "Ting, just tell me what you want." Still gentle. I ignored him, instead smiling at Father. "Your daughter congratulates Father on capturing the King of Gu alive." Father was overjoyed, patting my shoulder in a fatherly manner. "This victory relies entirely on you, 16. What do you want? A title or a reward, just name it. I have no other desires, only to assist Father in unifying the world." In front of him, I poured 2 cups of wine from the jug, offering one to him. "Father, this cup is my toast to you." He merely held the cup, watching me drink mine in one gulp. With no one else in the chamber, Father cautiously poured his wine onto the ground, laughing. "This cup is a toast to heaven and earth, witnessing the fruition of my empire." 5, 4, 3. I silently counted in my heart. Clang. He widened his eyes, black blood oozing from his mouth, yet he still clung to life. You. Father, how foolish you are to so easily trust the words of a girl who has lived alone and unscathed in the harem. Do you know how many people in this palace hate you so much they want to kill you themselves? Unluckily for you, I'm one of them. I drew the sharp hairpin from my head and mercilessly pierced my own father's throat. Blood splattered on my face and lashes, but I didn't blink. Only when Father's body was riddled with holes did I stand up, twisting my blood-soaked sleeve, and laughed joyfully. "Your daughter bids Father farewell to the heavens." Guzay watched me quietly, then smiled. "Ting, your killing technique is quite skilled." I wiped the blood from my face, grinning. "Thank you, practice makes perfect." I had killed my birth mother the same way back then. Few knew about my past as a child. Even my deceased birth mother probably thought I had forgotten. But I remembered clearly. I remembered accidentally barging into my mother's chamber, only to find 2 naked bodies. I remembered how she threw me into the icy pool, holding my head down, forbidding me to surface. I remembered having a high fever, her staying by my side every day, praying I wouldn't wake up. I remembered recovering from my illness, waking up like a bewildered child. Never recalling anything from before, no matter how hard I tried. I remembered my mother sighing in relief, discarding the poison soup she had prepared. But I knew she never let me go. Her lover had a deadly poison, a mere touch would cause bleeding from all orifices and death. Mother applied a bit on my chopsticks every day, hoping to disguise my death as a result of prolonged illness. Until one day, the poison was suddenly missing. She was terrified, searched everywhere, then began to suspect me. Mother beat me half to death, but I never revealed the poison's whereabouts. She and her lover plotted to kill me. But I acted first. I used my mother's poison and the method she intended to kill me, to kill them. I originally wanted to shed a few tears, to pretend to be a poor child who lost her mother. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't cry. Instead, the hatred in my heart grew stronger. I pulled out the rusty hairpin from my head, stabbing fiercely until I saw blood, then yanked it out. The more blood there was, the more satisfied I felt. I was born a bad seed. My mother often cursed me with disgust. She said I wasn't human, I had no heart. Even if I did, it was black. She was right. Someone who thinks about killing their parents day and night, what good could they be? But I knew I had to pretend to be normal, to not stand out so much. I sewed the poison into my clothes with needle and thread, then stitched up the holes in my mother's body, dressing her in clean clothes. Then I stumbled out, crying, incoherently shouting, "Mom, Mom, save Mom." The unloved concubine was hastily buried. She died, but I still have to live. I spent 8 days dismembering and burying my mother's lover, planning to bury the last leg under the banyan tree in the cold palace. But a few annoying hunting dogs smelled the blood and wouldn't leave me alone. Unexpectedly, I stumbled upon Guzay, the hostage just sent from Country Gu. I had long known that the hostage sent from Country Gu was raised by a mother wolf among a pack of wolves since childhood, unable to speak human language and indistinguishable from wolves. Such a person, useless to me, I wouldn't normally waste time on him. Perhaps because I had pretended to be pure and kind for too long. I actually believed myself to be soft-hearted and gave him my food for the day. Later, he disappeared inexplicably, and I didn't pay much attention. After all, in this palace, death is the norm. Until the news came that he had killed his father to ascend the throne, and wanted to marry a princess from country Li. Coincidentally, my third sister didn't want to marry, so her birth mother Imperial Noble Consort came to find me. I understood, heaven had already laid a smooth path before me. But do I just want to marry someone who treats me well and live a stable life? No. I don't want to live the previous life of begging and groveling. I don't want to trample my dignity underfoot. Don't want to play dumb and be ridiculed by everyone. I learned to read at 3, and could speak eloquently by 7. I understand strategy and write beautifully, and I comprehend Zhou Chuma's lessons. My talents are not inferior to any man. Why should I live so timidly? Filled with resentment, I dared not write grand ambitions, only a line on my clothes. Human affairs are dreams. Mortal life endures but a few autumns. I don't want this poem to become the verdict of my life. So I volunteered for a marriage alliance, and when I was at the door of the imperial study, I slipped a note to my father when he patted my head and leaned close. Your daughter, 16, respectfully requests, willing to marry far away for alliance. To cooperate internally and externally with Father Emperor and capture the king of country Gu alive. The promotion of my birth mother is false, returning to country Li is truly a banquet of doom. Gu Zhe knew, but still brought me back. He was fully prepared, but didn't expect me to drug him, making him powerless, like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. I asked him, I deceived you, do you hate me? Gu Zhe gently shook his head. Ting is fine like this, can protect herself, no longer bullied. Even if I killed someone in front of him, he still believed I was the same pure, helpless little girl. Gu Zhe, help me seize the throne, and I will spare your life. I looked at him, offering him a choice. Whatever you want, I will help you seize it. His eyelashes trembled slightly, he just asked, can you still call me Lang? I didn't mind being hypocritical and cunning in the face of absolute interest. So I leaned close to him, placed a kiss on the corner of his lips, and softly said, Lang, I want the throne. Okay, I'll give it to you. Gu Zhe obediently lowered his head, like a gentle wolf. When unchaining him, I took out a pill and fed it to his lips. He didn't resist at all, obediently swallowing it. This is poison. My fingertip was lightly brushed by his tongue, my body stiffened slightly. Gu Zhe kissed my palm and fingertips, softly saying, Lang's life has always belonged to Ting. Such passionate and straightforward feelings, I found difficult to handle. So I could only lower my eyes, without responding. Country Li was rotten inside, already riddled with holes. Infiltrated by many spies from country Gu and other nations. At Gu Zhe's command, the gates of the capital were opened, and country Gu soldiers swarmed in like locusts. I took out the forged imperial edict, stood on the city wall, and shouted, I am Li Yang, the 16th daughter of the late emperor. Now the late emperor has passed, and the throne is passed to me. Here is the imperial edict, violators will be executed. Why are you not kneeling before the new emperor? Gu Zhe looked up at me from below the city wall, first to kneel. Minister Gu Zhe, greets your majesty. Country Gu's army was stunned. Their king was tamed by the female emperor of country Li. But no one dared to protest. Under Gu Zhe's harsh rule, violators were executed. Country Gu's army then knelt one after another, shouting greetings to the emperor. From then on, I was no longer a princess of the deep palace. Nor a foolish child pretending to be mad, nor the queen of country Gu. I am Li Yang, shining alongside the sun. I want to hold power, stand at the pinnacle, have everyone submit. I want to create a new era, to become the first female emperor who creates a prosperous age. After ascending the throne, all the women of the harem and my siblings were sent to the palace in the suburbs, where they were provided with food and clothing, living in luxury. But they were never allowed to step out of the palace for the rest of their lives. Those who defied the order had their heads chopped off and hung at the palace gate as a warning. I changed the country name to Yang, abolished the inspection system, and improved the female official system. I appointed Gu Zhe as the king with equal status, merging country Gu and country Yang. I appointed Zhou Chumu as the chief minister to assist me in governing state affairs. In the court, half were former ministers of country Li, and half were former ministers of country Gu. Although many were dissatisfied with the female emperor's ascension, no one dared to voice their objections. Who would dare? That King Gu was constantly by the female emperor's side, his gaze fierce, as if ready to pounce and bite off your neck at any moment. He was the female emperor's personal executioner. In the second month of the female emperor's reign, she publicly read out the list of corrupt officials. And that King Gu would carry a knife and patrol the hall. As the female emperor read each name, he would execute one. King Gu carried the heads, while the female emperor sat in the hall watching, even pointing out flaws. She criticized his uneven blade and complained that his knife was too blunt. Blood flowed like a river in the hall, and everyone was on edge. Yet the two of them chatted and laughed, discussing which corrupt official to kill next. Even when Chief Minister Zhou tried to persuade them, it was to no avail. If not for the female emperor's intervention, King Gu almost took a knife to Chief Minister Zhou. Truly, madman. Extra chapter. After I ascended the throne, I grew closer to Zhou Chumu. Gu Zhe was particularly displeased with this. Whenever I discussed state affairs with Zhou Chumu, Gu Zhe would sit at the door, meticulously polishing his large knife. The cold light reflecting off the blade shone on Zhou Chumu's face. And despite his calm and gentle demeanor, he couldn't help but ask, "Your Majesty, do I still have a life to live?" I was embarrassed, Lang, if you keep polishing, the knife will break. Gu Zhe snorted, deliberately saying to Zhou Chumu, "Even without a knife, I could strangle your neck with my bare hands." Zhou Chumu lowered his eyes slightly, his lashes trembling, and said softly, "King Gu probably despises me. Perhaps I shouldn't come anymore." His appearance was as pitiful as could be. I felt quite troubled. Zhou Chumu is the chief minister of the cabinet, my right-hand man, and I certainly couldn't let him be wronged. But Gu Zhe is the king I personally appointed, and he's also my husband, so I can't hit or scold him. I sighed and chose to first address the current flood problem in the southeast. "Lang, can you return to your own chamber and wait for me?" He raised his head in disbelief. "You're sending me away?" I rubbed my temples, a bit helpless. "I'm not sending you away. I'll come find you after I finish dealing with state affairs." "No need." Gu Zhe stood up, his expression cold, and said indifferently, "Tonight, your Majesty should find another place to rest." With that, he turned and left. Zhou Chumu asked softly, "Your Majesty, aren't you going to chase after him?" I sat back on the throne, lightly tapping the thick stack of documents on the table, and smiled wryly. "The people of the southeast don't want to see me indulging in romance. Your Majesty loves the country and cares for the people. King Gu will understand your Majesty." I spread out the documents, dipped my pen in cinnabar, and joked, "If you were a woman, you would surely be a lady that everyone admires." Zhou Chumu merely smiled slightly, gently rolling up his sleeves and helping me grind ink. "Being able to relieve your Majesty's worries is my blessing." He leaned a bit closer, and I inadvertently looked up, noticing several red scars on his wrist. "When did you get hurt?" He lowered his sleeve, pursed his lips. "Just old wounds." Recently, there was a lot of commotion about his refusal to marry the third princess. The Zhou family had strict rules, and he probably suffered family punishment. I didn't ask further, just instructed the female official to bring some top-quality ointment for him. Zhou Chumu bowed to thank me, his thin shirt revealing his protruding spine, like a bamboo ready to break. After discussing state affairs, I personally went to find Gu Zhe. But his palace was empty, not a single person around. I asked the palace staff and learned that he had gone out alone, not allowing anyone to follow. Gu Zhe appeared very masculine, but his thoughts were actually quite delicate. Earlier, when I stayed with Zhou Chumu, he must have been jealous. I pondered for a moment, waved away the attendants, and went alone to the cold palace. Sure enough, Gu Zhe was leaning against the banyan tree where we first met, half-closed eyes lost in thought. I approached, draped my cloak over him, and gently brushed my fingers over his furrowed brows. Gu Zhe's eyelashes trembled slightly, and he looked up at me. I have always loved his blue eyes. When he first wakes up, they always carry a bit of innocence and confusion. Like a grown cub, still retaining pure innocence. But I love Gu Zhe's expression when he kills the most. Joyful, excited, even his smile carries cruelty. Others say we are a pair of madmen made for each other. I totally agree. He is brutal, I am vicious, we are a perfect match. Why sleep here? I casually sat beside him, not caring if my dragon robe got dirty. Guzei turned his head away in a huff. Your Majesty and the Chief Minister are discussing state affairs. I stay away so as not to disturb you too. Where does Lang want to go? I held his hand and shook it, my voice becoming pitiful. Are you planning to leave me and return to the northwest? Guzei snorted lightly, pulling me into his arms. The villain complains first. I hugged his waist tightly, starting to act spoiled. I don't care. Lang must accompany me for a lifetime, not allowed to go anywhere. What if I insist on leaving? He asked with a smile. Insist on leaving? I lowered my head, spread his palm, 10 fingers loosely intertwined. I have ways to keep you. Besides, he has taken my poison and must rely on me for the antidote every month to survive. No matter what, he can never leave my side in this lifetime. I dare not defy your Majesty. Guzei chuckled, then sighed softly. It's just, can you look at me more often? The wolf that once roamed freely on the boundless grassland willingly confined itself for me, begging for my favor. My heart suddenly sank, and I brushed his hair gently, whispering, Lang, no matter how many people are around me, you are definitely the most important one. Don't belittle yourself. No one is more important than you. I swear, you will be my only husband and my sharpest blade. Guzei placed a kiss on my lips, devoutly. All right, then I will be your Majesty's sharpest blade, killing all the treacherous officials and petty villains for you. After comforting the sulking Guzei, we returned together to his sleeping quarters. The candlelight flickered softly, casting gentle shadows. After dinner, I reclined on the chaise longue, flipping through a book, while Guzei knelt on one knee, carefully trimming my nails. Ting's fingers are so beautiful too. I was so absorbed in watching that I only murmured softly in agreement. Before long, I felt a slight sting at my fingertips. Looking down, I saw Guzei gently nibbling at my fingertips with his sharp teeth. His eyes provocatively meeting mine, with the golden candlelight dancing in his pupils. I didn't move, instead tracing his jawline with my thumb. Lang, are you hungry? He paused, his gaze darkening. Suddenly, his tongue lightly brushed over my fingertips, sending a tingling sensation up my spine. In my daze, Guzei had already knelt on the chaise longue, leaning in closer to me. Thank you, Your Majesty, for the reward. Before I could comprehend the meaning of his words, Guzei had already sealed my lips with his. He pressed me firmly onto the chaise longue, his long-restrained wildness and desire finally erupting. Guzei's kiss carried a savage fervor, overwhelming all my senses with his presence, leaving only the sound of water and his rapid breathing in my ears. Passion swept over us like a storm as we kissed madly, exchanging the most intense emotions, until the taste of blood filled our mouths. Guzei no longer plundered, but gently left a kiss at the corner of my lips. His blue eyes were now tinged with a captivating flush. The fire of desire ignited within him would not only spread to me but also threaten to consume him entirely. This palace I specially bestowed upon Guzei was the warmest place on this winter night. We kissed each other's brows by the window, embraced in the slick sweat. When my body suddenly felt light, I bit down hard on his shoulder, licking the blood that flowed from him amidst his scorching breath. The night deepened, and everything became hidden. Water snakes took the opportunity to slip into the pond, causing ripples to tremble. The moonlight shattered into thousands of pieces. The next day, I almost overslept. In a rush to attend court, my clothes were inevitably a bit disheveled. After court, I was reviewing memorials in the rear hall of the Golden Throne Hall, when Zhou Chumu entered and placed down a food box. I was about to ask what it was when I saw him turn his head, suppressing a few coughs with great effort. When he looked back at me, there was a hint of moisture in his eyes. Your Majesty seemed quite hurried during court and didn't have time for breakfast, did you? He opened the food box, presenting several dishes of porridge, vegetables, and snacks, his voice slightly hoarse. I happened to be on duty today and brought some food myself. If Your Majesty doesn't mind, you can try some. Zhou Chumu handed me a pair of chopsticks, and as I took them, I accidentally touched his reddened fingertips. They were icy cold. I frowned slightly. Your health is getting worse. He chuckled lightly, like a pearl with a faint glow. An old ailment, afraid of the cold every winter, it's nothing serious. I was about to inquire further when the attendant reported that Guzet had arrived. I glanced at Zhou Chumu with some difficulty. He smiled helplessly, stood up. I shall take my leave. Be careful on the slippery roads, Chief Minister, I casually reminded him. Just as Guzet entered, brushing past Zhou Chumu, he heard my words and mocked. Lord Zhou should walk slowly, your frail body can't afford a fall. Zhou Chumu wasn't annoyed, merely curled his lips and said, Thank you, for your concern. Guzet wanted to say more, but I stopped him with a glance. Outside the hall, Zhou Chumu's guards hurriedly draped a fox fur cloak over him. The white fox fur made him appear even more sickly pale, like a piece of fine jade that had already cracked. The guard was puzzled. Why doesn't the Lord tell Her Majesty everything you've done? Tell her what? That he had long discovered the little girl eavesdropping in the library? Or that he prepared an extra plate of pastries every day, placing it on the windowsill, watching with the corner of his eye as a small hand stole piece after piece? Or perhaps when she was discovered by the guards, he pleaded with the third princess to rescue her? The scars left by family rules had slowly healed. And Zhou Chumu still remembered when Guzet forced the former emperor to send a dowry to country Gu. He hid among the envoy's ranks just to catch a glimpse of her from afar. It was all his wishful thinking. Fortunately, the once helpless little girl wasn't as innocent as she appeared. She is now the supreme ruler, with a new name. Let all the past be buried in time, the road she must walk in the future is long. What he must do is guard this vast kingdom for her.